So today we're going to take a look at a scenario where China goes into civil war. Now this was one of the options voted on by you guys in the poll this week, and so here we are. Make sure to leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel if you're new. All the support is greatly appreciated, and let's get started. So I'm going to have China colored in blue here, and now they're going to be going into a civil war, as I've already said. We're going to have a more democratic uprising in the south, in which Taiwan is actually going to join. Next we have a Tibetan rebel group. The northwestern Chinese province is breaking away. I also have a Manchurian rebel group. Now remember, this is just for fun. This isn't meant to be entirely realistic. This is mostly just for entertainment, so if I get something wrong, the borders, or just in general, don't get mad at me. This is just for fun. But anyway, let's get started. Now, of course, if China went into a civil war, this would shake the global economy. China is one of the most powerful countries in the world. They are a major exporter of goods and products. So this would definitely have a major impact on the rest of the world. I probably won't talk too much about that because that's kind of boring. Unless you guys want me to talk more about that kind of stuff, you can let me know in the comments. But we're going to start off with the Democratic Red South country team thing. They're going to be pushing up the coast. Most of China's population is along the coast, and all of its major valuable parts are on here. And they just lost a lot of that to the southern state here, or even to Taiwan, you could say. But anyway, they push out from their borders, mostly just near the coast, and they begin to push up and into this peninsula. The Manchurian group starts to push down towards Beijing, but China has this area on lockdown, and they're not going to be able to get much farther than this. They do push around in Inner Mongolia, however, taking over a lot more land than they did farther south. This area isn't as heavily defended, a little bit easier time pushing through. But which countries would support countries in this war? What countries would even join this war? I don't know if any countries would join this war, at least definitely not right away. But let's start with countries that would support this democratic uprising. Well, the Philippines, they have a lot of disputes over China. They have a lot of disputes with China over the South China Sea, and well, the democratic one is right there, so they're going to be in favor of this. Definitely South Korea and Japan. They would definitely be in favor of this one. Australia and New Zealand. And obviously most of the Western countries like the US, Canada, the UK, France, Italy, Germany, Poland. And then who would be supporting the green one, the Tibetan one? Well, probably Bhutan, Nepal, Bangladesh, I'm going to say. And probably India. But one thing that's going to stop India from committing to their support for them is Russia supporting China. Now, if you don't know, India and China do not like each other, but India and Russia, they like each other. But India and the US, they also like each other. And India doesn't want to make Russia mad because they're a major trading partner and stuff like that. They don't want to make Russia mad by not supporting China, so they're going to be staying neutral in this war. But another country that's going to support China is going to be Pakistan. And of course, another country supporting China is, well, North Korea. They really wouldn't even be here if China didn't exist, so they kind of have to. We could even see them joining this war later. But in the Middle East, a lot of other countries are going to be supporting China, such as Iran and Afghanistan, Syria, and then in Europe, we actually add Serbia. And then I'm not really sure who would support Manchuria or this northwestern province, but I'm just going to go and I'm going to put a lot of Central Asia on their support, just because, I mean, they should have somebody. And Manchuria, I don't know. I mean, they're taking a lot of Inner Mongolia, so maybe Mongolia supports them. Maybe they have a deal. Maybe they take a little bit of Inner Mongolia if Manchuria wins the war. I don't know. I'm just going to leave it like that. In Southeast Asia, we might add Vietnam and Thailand to the democratic support side thing, yeah. And then the rest of the countries would probably support China. Now, I'm not really sure about a lot of this area, but I'm just going to leave it as it is. And back to the fighting, the northwestern province is going to be pushing into China. This area is largely undefended because there's nobody over here. So they're going to have a pretty easy time pushing through until they get into the more eastern parts. Same thing goes for Tibet. They're going to have a pretty easy time. And they're probably being supplied by India, but nobody knows that. They have a deal with the purple team to not invade them because they're just trying to get rid of China. So they're going to be leaving each other alone. in order to just focus on their major enemy, that being China, of course. Back over to the Democratic Red Team, they're going to be pushing into southern China here, near Myanmar, and they're going to try and meet up with the Tibetan team, which they do so successfully, encircling a lot of Chinese troops over here, which they actually flee into Myanmar, and troops from the Red Team don't realize that, and they chase them into Myanmar, which Myanmar sees this as an act of war, and so they join the war on the side of China. That might not have been a good move, as the Red Team was sending a bunch of troops over here to fight, so they just pushed across the border in an all-front war. And Myanmar isn't a super stable country, and they're not a super powerful country either, so they're falling pretty quickly. But this does serve as a good distraction for the Red Team, as China is able to push them back on the coast, and just slightly right here. We actually now have Thailand joining this war because they kind of want to get some land, and they're going to push into Myanmar, and they capitulate. With other countries joining this war, it's only fitting that North Korea does so too. North Korean troops fled into Manchuria. They were not expecting this, which they probably should have been, but this allows them, and obviously Chinese troops are going to be over here too, but this allows them to go and encircle a lot of troops over here, and just kind of push through and decimate Manchuria. But if North Korea is joining, that's right, South Korea's got to join too. North Korea wasn't expecting this, and they probably should have been, just as Manchuria wasn't expecting North Korea. And so South Korea, being as strong as they are, push through and capture Pyongyang within days, and begin to push through the rest of North Korea. Eventually the whole country falls, and they are able to push through and take back a lot of Manchuria, leaving isolated groups of Chinese and North Korean soldiers, with the major one being encircled right here, and these other ones being pushed back into Russia. But with Manchuria being distracted, they were able to push them back from Beijing, and just slightly up north, but nothing really happened there. And now that Thailand joined the war in the south, Laos and Cambodia actually are joining this war on the side of China, and then Vietnam's actually going to join as well. Now, please keep in mind that this is not supposed to be realistic, this is just for fun. The amount of comments I get saying like, oh, this wouldn't happen, I know, it's just for fun. But it's almost as if Thailand was expecting all this, and they were cooperating with Vietnam, and so they cut off southern Laos from northern Laos, and began to push through Cambodia and into northern Laos. Again, these countries are not very strong, and so they both will fall quite quickly. I mean, obviously not that fast, but just for the sake of the video, we gotta speed it up. With this entire southern front, and with the new influx of troops from Thailand and Vietnam, which is probably not that many, but considerable amount, they're able to make a lot of gains into China and take over a lot of land. Now, there's two major countries in Eastern Asia that did not join this war, those being the Philippines and Japan. Japan wants to stay out of this war, they want to be a little bit more neutral, but they definitely support the democratic side. And the Philippines, forget about it, they joined the war. They gotta settle those disputes in that South China Sea, so they move their navy in here, taking over this whole area. They don't really do any fighting. Now, of course, some of their troops are probably going and fighting in China, but it's mostly just naval skirmishes in the South China Sea. Back over in Western China, the purple team is making huge gains, taking over a lot of land. There's not really any Chinese troops over here, because they're mostly over here defending the capital, and all their valuable coastal cities and stuff like that. And so Tibet has the same success as they push through and take over a lot of land. They're probably not going to keep a lot of this land after the war, just because they don't need it. This is Tibet, right? Back up north, Manchuria is fully liberated from Chinese and North Korean troops. With the help of South Korea, they are able to push into China, and then near the gates of Beijing. They also make a landing on this peninsula, and meet up with the Democratic team. The Red team pushes up, and they also near Beijing, and eventually they're the ones who take it. As well, they're being supplied by a lot of very strong countries. With their capital gone, China basically surrenders, but a lot of guerrilla warfare continues to happen, and so all the different countries, or rebel groups, or whatever you want to call them, they just keep pushing through, taking as much land as possible, until eventually China does surrender. Now, let's go take a look at the peace treaty. Alright, and so taking a look at this peace treaty, China is now divided up into many different countries. Starting off, the Democratic one took over a lot of land of southern China. This is actually ruled over by Taiwan, so Taiwan is now a fully recognized country, and they got a ton of land. Tibet didn't actually take any land from what they originally broke away from, and that's just because they don't really need any more land. I mean, maybe they'll take that, but I don't know. And they might even give India some of their claims in Kashmir. I don't know. I'm not really sure what they look like. Something like that. This country here, which is still China, but it's much more pro-Western. Manchuria took over a little bit of land, and North Korea was taken over by South Korea. We have the return of Indochina, and I guess you could probably call it Siam. I don't know. It's not all the same lands, but Thailand basically just took over the tail of Myanmar and a little bit extra. And they basically just installed a new government there, with the help of the democratic country here too. And so yeah, thank you for watching. That's going to be it for this video. Make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Leave any of your comments or suggestions below. I will read them and I'll likely reply to them. And if you leave a suggestion, I will probably do it soon. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.